Since when do so many people give a shit about the NFL Hall of Fame? Is that like a new thing? Now, I'll admit, when I first saw the news about Bill Belichick likely not being a first ballot Hall of Famer, it's something like we talked about this yesterday with the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl, you didn't probably care about to begin with. And then when you see that Shador Sanders gets selected, it's like, okay, well, now I really have no reason at all to care about the Pro Bowl. I don't really, me, myself, love football. It's not the Baseball Hall of Fame. And even the Baseball Hall of Fame is like, oh God. I find myself getting worked up about it, and then I realize it's just not worth it. It's a silly Hall of Fame. It's out of control. There are people in who don't belong in. There are people out who do belong in. I just can't go through the same cycle every year. Although I do it. One day a year when the Hall of Fame results come out or the voting is about to happen, we have fun, we talk about it. It is what it is. But ultimately, I don't care about it the way that I used to because it meant a lot more. Not just because I was a kid, because there was more legitimacy to it, at least in my mind. With the NFL Hall of Fame, it's just not the same. The sport, for whatever reason, and I don't think I'm alone in this, and maybe it's just us in New York who feel this way because we love baseball so much. But the Football Hall of Fame, while it's cool and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that guy and Hall of Fame player, okay, whatever. Like it just doesn't resonate the way that the Baseball Hall of Fame did. So for me, it was always secondary and paying attention from afar. I think the Eli Manning conversation is a fascinating one. I do think Eli Manning should be a Hall of Famer. So there are conversations to be had. I think it's great when a Jet or Giant gets in. I know Revis, a couple of years ago, whatever it was, everybody was excited about that. But to go nuts when you kind of expect buffoonery with these Hall of Fame votes and results, I'm just not going to do it. There's no point to do it. Anybody who's watched 2 seconds of football their entire life would know that Bill Belichick is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. So the fact that the actual Hall of Fame and whatever process they use to vote on this wouldn't have Bill Belichick as a first time Hall of Famer just cements the fact home that these things are all bullshit and we shouldn't be paying attention to it. The NFL Hall of Fame to me is now worthless because Bill Belichick is not a first time Hall of Famer. I didn't really care much about it before. Now I think it's absolutely worthless. And to stick on the topic of Belichick, it's sad to me actually how far his legacy has fallen. And I think it's not only taken a hit because of his girlfriend, which whatever, like do you, Bill? I think it's a bad look. And I'm a Belichick fan. Like there are a lot of people in this town who hate Bill Belichick because of what he did with the Patriots versus the Jets, leaving the Jets, all that stuff. I know some Giant fans may love Bill Belichick, coordinator for championship teams, Super Bowls, beat him in the playoffs and the Super Bowls, whatever. I personally have always loved Belichick because Parcells is my favorite head coach of all time, and Belichick was a Parcells disciple. So I've always loved Belichick, especially that he was an underdog when he first got to New England. Always been a fan of his and had great respect for him. So much so that I used to side with Belichick over Brady in those Belichick-Brady arguments. And then, of course, Brady goes on and wins the Super Bowl without him. Belichick couldn't get the Patriots back, turned around without Tom Brady. And then he goes to Carolina, and it was a disaster. So, girlfriend, how it ended with the Pats. Girlfriend, how it went with North Carolina in 1 year or in year one. And now the Hall of Fame thing. And then on top of that, the fact that the Patriots have already rebuilt themselves without him and without Brady, with Vrabel and now Drake May, and are back in a Super Bowl, I think that takes a little bit away from Brady and Belichick accomplishments. Now, it's never going to subtract their Super Bowl wins, but I do think when you see a franchise that was down where the Pats were prior to Belichick and Brady connecting, and then it being built back up, and I know like Parcells took them to a Super Bowl. I'm not talking about that. They didn't have the sustained success until Belichick and Brady. And then what those two did, they were labeled as the greatest of all time, and rightfully so. And then we talked about the splitting, and then it wasn't very good in New England. And now, without those two, years removed from those two, they're back on top. I do think you have to look at the Belichick-Brady dynasty a little bit less and just say, hey, a big part of their success is the structure of the organization headed by the owner, Robert Kraft. Again, I'm not trying to minimize the greatness of Belichick and Brady, but I do think that even for me, who looks at those two as the greatest of all time, respectively, it's surprising that a a franchise after losing the two goats can turn it around that quickly. And I think that just makes it to me a little bit less shine because it's not like it's an impossible thing to do. They built it right back up. Whereas if you go to a team like if somebody took over the Jets and had them be successful, it'd be like, oh my God, these guys are the greatest thing ever. And then if they leave after 4 or 5 years, and then the next team comes in or the next regime comes in, builds them up again or wins with them again, you'd be like, oh well, maybe it wasn't just those guys. So I know that Belichick and Brady had obviously a lot to do with getting the Patriots to a level where they needed to be. But they also, when Brady at his end wasn't great with New England, when he left, the Patriots got even worse. Belichick left, it wasn't very good when he was here at the end, and then when he leaves, and then all of a sudden Vrabel comes in with Drake May and they do it right again. So maybe it's more of a product of the crappy division, a product of, as I said, the ownership and stability and the decision making in the front office. I think those are all factors as well that maybe got overlooked a little bit. Even with the easier path for the Pats, I still think the fact that they could get back to a Super Bowl so soon after moving on from two of the all-time greats has to dent a little bit of the Belichick Brady, great dynasty and legacy.